Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and this is another installment of Book Trek 2023, where we are looking at a graphic novel, Too Long a Sacrifice, about Deep Space Nine by Scott Tipton and David Tipton. So, Scott and David Tipton, I had read two other graphic novels by them last year for Book Trek. I read their Mirror Universe collection, which I enjoyed quite a bit. I love their Mirror Universe stuff. And then there was also, what do they call it? Q Wars? I don't remember the exact name of it. I could be getting that wrong. But it was a fun way to bring all the different sort of crews of Star Trek from original series and, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and basically Q has them all competing in competitions, and it was a really fun idea. I wish it would have been fleshed out more and given more space, but it was still a fun idea. So these are two writers that I'm interested in whenever they do Trek, and I had seen this on Hamilton Books super cheap. I think it was only maybe $3 or something like that. So I grabbed it from there. And again, I'm glad I did. This was a very quick read. It's maybe only three or four comic issues. And this is a murder mystery. Now, I had recently read The Vulcan Academy Murders, so I didn't expect to necessarily have two murder mysteries back to back. But here we have it. In the very beginning, we have Garrick and Dr. Julian Bashir. They're on the promenade, and they are inside a cafe, and there's an explosion. And a number of people die. Of course, they end up surviving. But they realize this is an intentional explosion. Somebody set this off. And then we have some other people winding up dead. So Odo, the constable of the base, he knows that he has a murder mystery on his hands. And eventually, because there's these dead ends occurring, and there's various races being killed in these attacks, between being Ferengi and even Nausicaans, there's pressure from the Federation to get this thing solved quick. So they end up sending a Betazoid along to help Odo. And this is during the Dominion War, and not too long after Beta Z had been attacked by the Dominion. The Jem'Hadar and basically occupied it. So in the background, we have this war stuff going on through the Dominion War, which is pretty interesting. So we have this murder mystery, and they are going around questioning people and trying to figure stuff out. And it's, the whole thing ends up basically playing out just fine. This was a solid read. It didn't blow me away in any, at all, but I definitely enjoyed it for what it was. As far as a mystery goes, it's not bad. It's okay. It's not something that you can really solve yourself exactly, but the resolution I was not dissatisfied with. I like the interaction with this Betazoid investigator with Odo, because the Betazoid kind of arrives with some preconceived notions or misgivings about Odo, because Odo's species is the Founders, basically those who are in control of the Jem'Hadar and the Dominion. So he is wary of working with this shapeshifter, and in Trek fashion, we see those kinds of things overcome, as they should be inside a Star Trek series. I think that for the most part, people were pretty true to form. There is one point where Worf is helping Odo try and solve it, and Worf is very much his kind of more old-fashioned self of, all this investigating. We already know who did it. Let's just go after them. But Worf was also head of security for many years on the Enterprise, the flagship. I think that he would be a little bit more careful at that point, by the time he gets to Deep Space Nine, about investigating murders, and not being quite so brash as he would have been in, season 1 or 2 of of Next Generation. So I felt like he could have been written a little bit more, a little bit with a little more care as far as being an investigator, somebody who was basically law enforcement at a certain point. But Odo's well written. Garrick, a lot of the main characters are pretty well done. As far as the art is kind of, some of it's pretty good. It's just, the art is by Greg Scott, and it's just uneven. Like we have, let me see if I can find a good example here. But so we have certain things like this. This is a Bajoran woman screaming, and those are all really good. That's really great art. But the first time we see this Bajoran woman, she looks like a Picasso painting. Like that's the same woman the first time we see her. And I couldn't even tell that was supposed to be like a Bajoran, or, she looks like, her face is melting a little bit or lopsided. So it's uneven. Sometimes the faces look excellent. Sometimes, especially when they're a little bit farther away, they look very off. But overall, it's all very serviceable. And there's a certain kind of, I think noir quality about some of it that I enjoyed overall. So, if you can get your hands on this sort of thing cheap, I'm not saying go out and spend $20 or anything like that. If you can get it cheap like I did for a couple of bucks, it's worth getting and reading. And I'm certainly willing to give Scott Tipton and David Tipton more chances, and to keep reading their stuff whenever they write Star Trek graphic novels. So anyhow, those are my thoughts on Too Long a Silence, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, a murder mystery in graphic novel form. If you've read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I do hope that you can join us on Book Trek. And as always, thank you, BookTube.